Hey everybody, it's Patrick. I want to say thank you so much for joining us for our online service tonight. It's going to be an incredible night. I know you're going to be glad that you were a part of this, but I wanted to put two things on your radar before the service even started. The first thing is that we are having a vision night. Essentially, it's going to be a big party here on Zoom. It's going to be next Sunday night at 8 p.m., right? So that's next Sunday night, 8 p.m. It's our vision night. We're going to be talking about where God is leading us as a church and really about who we are. And so we would love for you to be a part of that. If it's your first time, again, we'd love for you to be a part of that as well. It's the best way to learn more about who we are and all that's going on at our church. We'd love for you to be a part of that. Again, that's next Sunday night, 8 p.m. You can get all the details at nuvochurch.org. That's nuvochurch.org. Get all the details there, but we'd love to invite you to be a part of that. And then the second thing is every Thursday night we get together for a digital small group. It's an incredible way to meet people, to really build some relationships, be a part of this church. So we'd love for you to join us on Thursday night, 8 p.m., right? Every Thursday night at 8 p.m. And you can get all the details there at nuvochurch.org/groups. You can log on right there, but we'd love for you to consider being a part of that as well. Okay, as I said, tonight's going to be a great night. We're calling it New Normal. And so we're going to be talking about everything that's going on in all of our lives and how we can make sure to come out on the other side of this whole new normal in a better way.
Hey everyone, my name is Emily and I want to say welcome to Nuvo Church. We are so excited that you're with us for this service. And if this is your first time, we wanted to give a big shout out to you. Thanks for being here. During our time together, we're going to have music from our friends at Hope Church NYC and a message from our lead pastor, Patrick Holden. I also have a really exciting event that I wanted to tell you about. We're going to be hosting our first Vision Party on Sunday, July 26th at 8 p.m. It's going to be an evening we'll get to have some fun. You'll meet some of our team and hear the story and the vision of Nuvo Church. Now, Zoom calls aren't normally thought of the best night of the week. We get that, but we promise this is going to be a great night and we'd love for you to join us. Let us know you're coming by going to nuvochurch.org/party and we'll see you next Sunday night. Now, one thing we all know to be true is that our world has changed. Our lives have changed. Our normal will look different in the future. As we enter into this new normal, most of us have a lot to leave behind, but also quite a bit to carry with us. During the message, we're going to explore how to enter into this season in a healthy way. We'll be talking about our new normal. To get us started, we've asked some people what's one takeaway they've discovered so far, and here's what they've said.
So I think the biggest thing that I've learned throughout this entire thing has been being in the moment, whether that be with friends, family, or spending time with God. With everything that was going on, it kind of stopped everything, so it forced you to really refocus. So that's really my biggest takeaway coming out of here, is really refocusing my mind, being in the moment with family, friends, and obviously being intentional with my time.
One thing that I've learned during the pandemic is that I'm as connected as I want to be. So being an extrovert and knowing that I need people in my life, I've worked really hard to just stay connected with social media, texting, FaceTime, and all those different avenues.
Pandemic, I've learned how to better take care of myself, focusing on my self-care, learning how to cook nutritious meals, exercising, and to this day I'm still incorporating all of that and making the time to get my exercise in every day.
That Michael Jordan's last dance was the only thing worth watching on TV. No, but seriously, I've learned to take one day at a time, trust God, choose standards over my feelings, and that Black Lives Matter.
Hey, one thing that this pandemic has really reminded me of over the last couple of months is that connections, they really do matter. Being connected with other people really does just make life better. I've had some intentional time, some really great time to connect with friends, with my family, spending some great time with them, and then being able to connect with others. Even if it means digitally right now, it's a great reminder that being connected with others really does make a difference.
After the pandemic, I hope to keep the mindset that I don't always have to be busy to have meaningful moments.
You know, I think the biggest thing I've learned during this season is that just because something is different than I expected it to be doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. It's so easy when plans change to feel like everything is wrong or nothing is good enough. But even in those moments of the unexpected and those moments of feeling like we lost something, there's still goodness to be found. There's still moments of joy to be discovered, and learning to look for those has been a big thing for me recently.
Hi, I'm Deiter, and one of the things that I've learned during the pandemic is just the importance of community and the physical presence of being around people. Obviously, we're not able to do that right now, and I hope moving forward when we are, that's something that I never take for granted. I'm very grateful for the tools we have to continue to be in relationship, but there's something about the physical presence of being surrounded by people that you love and enjoy being around. So that's something, again, that I just hope I never take for granted for the rest of my life.
White noise is a constant background noise that drowns out all of the other sounds. Now at our house we have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they have this sound machine in their room. And every night this white noise sound is in the background, and it's helping them sleep by making sure that other sounds don't disturb them during the night. Now this isn't just for kids though. I mean, you've heard this in other places, probably without even knowing it. I actually worked at an office one time and they had these speakers strategically placed all over, and the white noise was just loud enough to drown out the other sounds, specifically of people across the room talking in cubicles, but it wasn't so loud that it was noticeable? That's because white noise is subtle, and it has this distinct purpose of masking other sounds. Most of us were living with some sort of white noise in our lives as well. For a lot of us, that white noise was busyness, and it's funny because busyness can cover up a lot of the things in our life that we don't want to deal with. You can run so fast that by the time your head hits the pillow at night, you haven't ever really stopped to look inward, at least in the areas that truly matter. Now, before we moved into the season of coronavirus and quarantine and spending more days than we'd like to admit eating Doritos for lunch, many of us had become numb to the fact that we'd allowed the white noise of busyness to even be there, but it was. And it was drowning out our anxiety and our fears and our worry and tension in our relationship and unstable finances. I mean, you name it, busyness can distract us from lots of things. And in some ways, it allows us to escape the necessary work of dealing with the cracks in our life's foundation. But one thing about white noise is that it's almost unnoticeable until it stops. But once it does, then all of a sudden that's all you can hear or not hear. And for us, when it came to busyness, our lives were moving faster and faster and faster, and then all of a sudden the world just stopped.
This is something that I've often described, Steve, and not to be hyperbolic about it. It really is the perfect storm and an infectious disease and public health person's worst nightmare.
For many of us, the ability to use busyness to mask the struggles that we had is all of a sudden gone, which means when the white noise stopped, you were left with what you were already carrying. It means that if you had marriage problems before this, all of a sudden the tension in your marriage, it was amplified. Or if you were bored or living life without purpose, it only intensified as the ability to be busy with unimportant things simply faded away. Or maybe the cracks in your financial discipline, all of a sudden they were exposed, and the emotions of feeling desperate, they were amplified, and then they were at the forefront of your mind over and over and over again. And then what about your faith? Right? Your doubt, questions, your struggles, and wondering all came through with clarity as you had to deal with uncertainty on a daily basis. If God is good, why would He allow this to happen? For many of us, it hits close to home as you see people that you love struggle with the virus or with mental health or with relationships in this season of their life. Because of all of that, there's at least a small part of us that wishes we could go back to normal life. Maybe we could turn up that white noise just enough to drown out what we've been forced to face. It's not just about going back to non-quarantine life. I mean, sure, I get that you want to go to that concert or that restaurant or go to an in-person meeting where people don't have to use a Star Wars Zoom background while they're wearing a collared shirt and pajama pants, right? I get all that, but this goes deeper than that. What many of us are faced with are life problems that we hadn't fully dealt with pre all of this, and now we're forced to look at them head on. Right now, we are all entering into a new normal, but the question is, will we make this a better normal for ourselves? Anytime, and I mean anytime we are faced with disruptive change like this, we are left with an invitation for something new and the possibility of creating something that's better. Now, that doesn't mean that your circumstances will necessarily change, and it certainly doesn't erase any of the heartache that many of us have experienced. But it does mean that you have the capacity and the potential to come out on the other side of the disruption better than when you entered into it. But it doesn't just involve you. At times in our lives, we can easily assume that we can do it all on our own. If we just hustle enough or work harder or think differently, then we'll settle all of the unsettled parts of our lives. But the problem is that if you could have done that, you probably would have done that already. What's interesting to me is that the writings in the Bible actually speak to that gap that we're talking about, and not in some sort of wishful, childish way of dealing with it. In fact, when you find the New Testament, you find a guy named Paul whose story had all sorts of tension in it. In fact, the things that Paul did would mark his life for the rest of his life. He was educated, brilliant, and in a lot of ways a part of the religious elite. But Paul was also a person who had persecuted Christians. Now, these are his words to a group of people in one of the early churches that he was a part of. He says this, "For you have heard of my previous way of life in Judaism, how intensely I persecuted the church of God and tried to destroy it. I was advancing in Judaism beyond many of my own age among my people and was extremely zealous for the traditions of my fathers." Now, what all Paul did, we don't actually know. However, we know that those actions and stories of his persecution of Christians went before him into other parts of the world. But Paul had this encounter with Jesus where he experienced life transformation, and he decides to follow the person and the way of Jesus, and his life completely changes. But his reputation and his previous decisions did not. Now, though God had this incredible plan for Paul's life, he would plant churches all over the ancient world. He'd end up as the writer of over half of what we call the New Testament, and his influence would reach thousands of years beyond his death, but it didn't change his past. So how does a guy go from such an embarrassing past that followed him throughout the ancient world to a guy who would have profound influence on the world? God used his past to set him up to do something in the future. Paul would pen these words to the church in Rome to describe the power of God working in our lives when we open ourselves up to him. Here's what he says, "And we know that in all things." Now, when Paul says we know, he's acknowledging that he is sure. He is confident about this. And what's he confident about? He's confident that in all circumstances, no matter what you've done or what's been done to you or what you even neglected in your life to solve, God's grace is as big and as vast as whatever you've experienced. Then he goes on and he says, "And we know that in all things, God works for the good." This is both a startling and unsettling and even comforting thought at the same time, because it means that God has the power to work through whatever circumstance in your life to bring about good, to redeem it, to do something with it. It means if you pause and you reflect, if you don't move too fast through it or box it up and put it away in your mind, it means that he's inviting us to be a part of this redemptive story. But he'll redeem those parts of our lives that are seemingly impossible and difficult for us to do on our own. But it does require something on your part. It requires reflection, and it requires us to dive into those areas that sometimes we'd like to neglect or ignore. However, when we do that work and invite God into it, he has the power to bring benefit to our lives and use all of that to benefit the lives of others as well. And Paul says this, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him." This is referring to those who come to God with a mindset of desiring his way over their own way. It's the acknowledgement that he is God and we are not. And truthfully, this isn't everybody right now, but there are those of you who have found yourself at the point where you're ready to release the illusion of control and then come to God with open hands. It's inviting him into our circumstances and choosing the way of Jesus in our lives. It's saying, "I want what you want for me, and I will realign my life in that direction." Then Paul ends this particular verse with this last piece. He says this, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose." God has the power to bring purpose out of anything that you give to him. Prior to this verse, Paul's been talking about the power of God as the creator, but it doesn't just end with that idea. God isn't just out there as this all-powerful God who's disconnected from his creation. In fact, he promises to be with us in it. We get the vastness and power of God as creator, but also the personal and present Father who's among us in our struggle. He's not waiting on you to have your life together or all your questions answered or your doubt eradicated, right? He's there with you with this invitation to follow him on a journey through all of that with him. Now, I know that these last several months have likely revealed things in all of us that need to be reshaped and dealt with, but I believe deeply that your new normal has the potential to be a better normal. Why? Because you have the potential and capacity to be a better you. Now, not on your own, but through a relationship with Jesus and his transforming power in and through us. Now, what many of us have experienced in at least one area of our lives is a place that needs adjustment before all of this even happened. Now, the great theologian Warren Buffett says it this way. He says, "Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming without shorts." Yeah, you get it. It's funny, but very true. Many of us are feeling that kind of vulnerability in our lives right now, and we know that we need to make a change in at least one area. Now, gaining experience doesn't make you better at life. Evaluated experience with specific action is what's going to make you better. Now, for a long time, I played baseball. I had this pitching coach who used to play for the Braves. His name was Jose Alvarez. And I'll never forget during our practice sessions, he'd have me repeat something over and over. He'd say, practice doesn't make perfect pitching. Evaluated practice with disciplined steps will make you a better pitcher. Now, we would go through all of the small pieces of my windup and make tweaks and adjustments, but there was never a sense of arrived, only a sense of becoming better, and I think that's where many of us are today. So if you found yourself at a place in marriage when all of a sudden the tensions that you have been amplified, it doesn't mean it's over. It means it's time to lean in. It means it's time to evaluate how you're doing and what changes you need to make sure that you are a better spouse. If you found yourself bored in life and living without purpose in your work or career, it's time to lean into that. In some ways, you've probably been given this gift of a reset, and it's a really incredible thing. You get however many years that you get on earth, but God designed you to do something with your life that lines up with your gifting. And as crazy as it sounds, it might be time for you to take steps, yes, even in a global pandemic, towards living your life with aligned purpose. Maybe you found yourself at a place where you're struggling financially. It's likely that this didn't happen for you overnight. Our current season may have hastened and amplified that financial pain, but for most of us, this did not create it. It's time to evaluate where you are and what you need to do so that you can come out on the other side of this with healthy financial habits. Many of us have found ourselves with questions about faith as well, and I totally understand that. Some of you assumed that religion or faith questions was something that you would work through one day, but it wasn't something that you were going to work through now. Some of you, maybe you're even a follower of Jesus, you have even allowed yourself to become so busy with every other part of your life that you've neglected to engage deeply in what it means to follow Jesus on a day-by-day basis beyond whatever a Sunday morning service would be. In many ways, this is a time to reset. It means that we all get to come and engage with our faith more fully. It's time to lean in and ask questions that we've been afraid to ask. It's time to begin working through what we actually believe about God, about the way of Jesus, and what it means to be human in our world. Our new normal has the potential to be a better normal, but it begins with you looking inward and with a question. During this season of your life, what has been revealed about you? When the white noise was silenced, when your pace changed, when your uncertainty began to speak louder than what you were confident in and what you were sure of, what tensions were amplified in your life? Now, as you discover those and you lean into them, what I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself these three questions. What do you need to discard? What do you need to keep? And what do you need to add? Now, our family just moved to Columbus, which means that we had everything packed up. We had to bring it to a new city. And if you've ever moved, you know how easy it is to accumulate so much stuff along the way. There comes these moments when it's time to discard things that you don't need, which is very hard, but very necessary. Then sometimes you run into things that you didn't even realize that you had, but when you rediscover them, you see just how important they are. And sometimes you have things that need to be added to make something healthy and complete and whole all over again. Now, you in this new normal will have to do the work of answering those three questions in your life as well. What do you need to discard? What do you need to keep? What do you need to add? Now, there may be a pace that needs to be completely discarded from your life. You didn't realize it until everything came to a screeching halt, but you don't want to go back to that place again. There may be a rhythm or a habit that you need to keep. Maybe it's dinner at the table without Netflix, right? Maybe you did that every once in a while, but doing it on the regular is actually connecting you deeper with the ones that you love the most. And there's also likely something that you're going to need to add to your life as well. Maybe it's a morning ritual that involves you engaging in the bigger questions about your life. Maybe it's prioritizing generosity and savings before you spend all that you earn. Maybe it's adding space in your week to connect with other people who are exploring faith and life just like you are. The truth is that you are moving into a new normal, and it's time to ensure that it's a better normal than you came into this season with. Now, to wrap up our service, I wanted you to have a moment to reflect and actually look inward. For some of you, this is the first time all week that you've paused and created space in your life just to breathe and reflect and be fully present. And I get it. I mean, I know it's hard over a screen or sitting in a coffee shop with headphones in or watching this at a desk somewhere. I totally get it. There's so many distractions, but just for a moment, I want you to do your best to tune out as many of those distractions as possible. And I want you to think about the power that lives in a God that isn't just creator, but a God who has promised to be close in every single one of your steps forward. As much as you need to take action on those areas of your life, you also need to come to Him open-handed and invite Him into those spaces in your heart and in your mind. So tonight we have some friends, Lauren, Paul, and Justice from Hope Church NYC, who are going to lead us in a song called Make Room. Now, this song is really just a prayer that invites God into our lives and it asks Him to do whatever He wants to do in those areas. It acknowledges that we aren't alone and our struggles, and genuine transformation is actually possible through Jesus.
ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. You're always better, you're always better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. You're always better. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. If it's your first time spending any time with us, we're so glad that you were here. I want to let you know about a couple of things that we have coming up that we would love to invite you back to. The first thing is every Thursday night, we get together on a Zoom call and we have this digital group, and it's a great place to build community, to have some fun, to build some new relationships. Even though it's over a Zoom call, we have a ton of fun, and we would love to invite you to be a part of this. It's really the best, I think, the best next step for you to take when it comes to your faith and being able to apply some of the things that we talked about tonight. So we would love for you to join us this coming Thursday night, 8 p.m. You can go to nuvochurch.org/groups. That's nuvochurch.org/groups. You can log in right from there, but we would love to invite you to be a part of that. The second thing I want to let you know about is we are a brand new church that's launching here in Columbus. And so next Sunday night, right, mark your calendars, next Sunday night, we are having our first event. It's going to be a vision night where we talk about all of the things that God has already done and what we believe that God is calling us to do in this city. And it doesn't just involve me, it doesn't just involve our staff, it involves so many of you. So we would love for you to come to this. It's a great way to learn more about our church, to build some more friendships, to be a part of this. And so we would love to invite you to be a part of that. So again, it's going to be Sunday night, 8 p.m. All of the details are on nuvochurch.org. We would love for you to join us for that as well. Now, with all that said, I want to invite you immediately following this service to join us on a Zoom call right after this. It's almost like an after party. We kind of talk about some of the content that we discussed tonight, but even more than that, we just kind of get together, catch up. It's a great way to meet some people, a great way to take a first step into Nuvo Church and all that God is doing here. So we would love to invite you to be a part of that. All you got to do is go to nuvochurch.org/lobby. That's nuvochurch.org/lobby. There's a login link right there. It's super simple. It's all on Zoom. We'd love for you to be a part of that. Hey, again, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Hopefully we'll see you on the after party. If not, definitely back here next Sunday for our vision night. We'll see you at one of those two things. Thanks so much for being a part. We'll see you soon.